What's up everyone, Leon Petru here. I'm so excited for today's video because I have spent the past 12 hours non-stop building out a fully automated system that takes as input a YouTube link, it scrapes the transcript, writes out a blog post, and then it publishes that to your CMS on Webflow. So before we jump into building it, I'm going to be doing a quick demo to show you exactly how it works. So what you can do is you can go to YouTube and you can literally find absolutely any video on YouTube. So let's go to the AI category and let's maybe choose this video over here, just choosing a random one, which is researchers stunned as AI improves itself towards super intelligence. All right, that sounds like an interesting blog post. So all you need to do is copy the URL, right? Then in your make.com automation, come and paste in that over there as a variable. And that is literally all you need to do. Now we click run. And what it does is it now takes that URL, it passes it to an API, which scrapes the captions or the transcript. So that's what happened right over here. The next step is to use the Anthropic Claude 3.5 Sonnet API to write out a blog post based on that transcript. It's then going to pass that output, assigns all the values that we're interested in to variables. It then scrapes a relevant image with the Unsplash API, and it then publishes that to Webflow and sends me an email to let me know it's done. So let's go check out the output. So if you come to Webflow and we go to blogs, you'll see there is the new recently added blog. I'm going to click on this eye to preview it. And here it is. So you can see it added a relevant title, which is Microsoft Breakthrough Small Language Models that can self-improve through deep thinking. All right, and it generated that based on the transcript of the video. It added a royalty-free image from Unsplash, and then it generated the blog. So you can see it, it's nicely structured with H2 and H3 headers. It's got paragraphs, and you'll even notice that right at the bottom, it has added a hyperlink so that it entices people with a call to action to join the free trial of Futurize, which is my online learning platform. So that is what you'll be learning today, how to go from a YouTube link to a published blog post on Webflow. In my case, I set it to draft, so it automatically sets it to a draft so that I can manually go and review it before I publish it to live. But that is what we are going to be building. So let's jump into it and get started. So first thing you want to do is navigate to the website make.com. And then if you don't have an account, you want to click get started for free. Or if you do have an account, you can simply log in. I just want to show you that make.com do have a free plan. So essentially you'll be able to use this blog post automation without ever paying for it. And you'll be able to post at least 1 or 2 blog posts a day completely free. Let's log in. So what you want to do is create a new scenario. That's basically like an AI automation. So you can either click create a new scenario there, or you can go to scenarios and click create a new scenario. Right. I'm just going to rename this from new scenario to YouTube blog tutorial. And there you go. So first thing we want to do is we want to add a variable where we will be entering the link that we're going to be scraping from. So you want to click this plus and just search the word variable. And there is our module we want to use, which is set variable, and we can give it a name. So I'm going to call it YouTube URL. Next, for the variable value, that's where we will enter our YouTube link that we are going to be scraping. So as an example, we would copy this and paste that in over there. You can then click OK to save that module. I'm also just going to rename this just for readability. So right click, rename. And instead of calling it tools, I'm going to call it set YouTube URL, and I'll click OK. It's also good practice to run your modules after you create them to make sure that it's working. So I'm going to click run once, and we can see if it worked by checking the output over here. And we can see in the output, the YouTube URL is set to that value. So we know that worked correctly. Another way to check is by clicking this little drop down and click download output bundles. And we can see the JSON structure of the output, and we can see that the value has been assigned to the variable. Now that we have the link, we can move on to scraping all the captions or the transcript from this YouTube link. So I've checked out multiple different APIs which can do this. YouTube also do have an API that does this for free. It's called the YouTube Data API. However, it is limited though to your own videos. So you can only scrape the transcript from the videos on your own channel or from limited videos which allow it. However, I have found an API which is super powerful. It's called Superdata.ai. This isn't a sponsored post. However, I'm just using it and I think it's a really great tool. So I'd recommend you use it too. They also do have a free version, which is super cool. So if you come to pricing, you can see you can scrape 100 YouTube transcripts per month for free. And if you want to up that number to 1,000, you can subscribe to the plan, which is only $9 a month. So I like the Superdata API because it's just so simple to use and it works very reliably and it's free. So let's jump into the documentation. So if you come to documentation and under YouTube, you want to go to transcript. Here's a quick start request that we are going to be copying for our own use. So we can see it's a super simple API. We just use a get. That's the endpoint. Here is the URL of the video that it needs to scrape. And then we need to add in the API key for authentication. So we can see there's an authentication section. So we'll check that out in a moment. But for now, let's come back to Make and let's go and add in a new module. So you can just click this little plus to add in a new module on the right hand side of that. And we can search for HTTP. And the module we want to use is make a request. So we can click on that. And this is where we can add in the endpoint and set all the parameters for the API call. Note that the reason we have to use this HTTP make a request module is because Superdata don't have a public module. So if I search Superdata, you can see they don't have one. However, I do believe that they have a private one. So if you contact them privately, they may be able to share that with you. Let's get into setting up this API call. So first, the URL. Let's come here and copy this whole URL. Right click, copy, back here, and paste. Cool. The method, we want to keep it as get, as it tells us over here. It's a get method. And then in the header, we want to set X API key. So I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to add a new header, paste that into the name. And then for the value, we now need to come and get the API key. To get your Superdata API key, what you want to do is go to authentication. And here it has instructions on how to get your API key. So what you want to do is go to this URL, dash.superdata.ai. And you want to then click subscribe on the free plan. All right, if you want a paid plan, you can just subscribe here and add in your billing details. So I've already subscribed to the free plan. So I'm going to click here and you can see I've already used 84 out of 100 requests for this month. But for you, it'll say 0 out of 100. So in order to get your API key, you just want to scroll down and you can see here, you can generate an access key. So I'm going to click this plus and you can give it a name. So I'm going to call it YouTube blog tutorial. And you can set an expiration date. So I'm just going to set the expiration date to tomorrow. Okay, and I'm going to click generate access key. You don't have to set a expiration date. I'm just doing that because this is going to be posted publicly on YouTube and we need to keep access keys a secret in order to protect your billing account. So here we have my new API key. I'm going to click this little I so that I can see it. And I'm going to click copy. I'll then come back to make and I'll paste in the value over there, Control V. And there you go. That looks like that's all done. I'm going to click OK. Before we test this, there's one last thing we need to do. And that is we need to replace this YouTube URL over there, which starts from the HTTPS, the protocol, all the way to the last value of the video ID, which is this letter Q. In your case, it'll be something different. So you want to delete that. And what you want to do is you want to replace that with a variable. In our case, it's the YouTube URL. So you can see it's coming up here on the left for us. I'm going to click that. And you can see now it added a dynamic variable in place of where we had that static YouTube URL. Let's click OK to save that. Remember, it's good practice to always test your modules after you build them to make sure it's working. So let's do that. You want to click run once. And it'll run it from the beginning. So it's busy setting the URL, and now it just did the HTTP request. To see the response, we can click this little speech bubble. Before we do that, I'm just going to rename this activity just for readability, and I'm going to call it Get YouTube Transcript. So we can see it successfully ran. If we come here and we click on this data and expand that, we can see here it has this entire response in JSON format. So you can see in this JSON format, we have a key lang for language, which is English. That's the value. Then we have another key, which is available languages, which means it only comes in English. And then this is a content, and this is the part that we're actually interested in, which is the actual transcript in plain text. We don't want this extra content in the beginning of the string. We want to extract only the content. So the way to do that is Make have made it very easy for us. All you need to do is click on the Make a Request module, scroll all the way down to the bottom and click on Pass Response and set that to yes. So by setting the pass response to yes, that will allow you to access just the content variable in later modules. And I'll show you where we use that a bit later. Now that we have got the transcript, the next step is to use a large language model in order to actually convert that transcript into a blog post. All right, so I've tried multiple different language models. OpenAI is okay. I personally don't like it for writing. A good option is using the DeepSeek large language model. It is very affordable. However, it's not the smartest. My personal preference, and objectively, according to all the evaluation benchmarks out there, Claude 3.5 Sonnet is the best at writing. And I personally like the tone of Claude 3.5 Sonnet as opposed to ChatGPT or OpenAI, because it does sound AI generated, whereas with Claude, it sounds very natural and human written. So I'm going to click Add Another Module, and then you want to search for Claude, and you want to use the Make an API Call module. What you then want to do is you need to click on this Add button, and you then want to add in an API key from Anthropic. So you need to go to console.anthropic.com, or you can click this button here, and it should take you to console.anthropic.com, and you can then come and create an API key. So I'll click Create Key. I'll keep it in my default workspace, and I'll call it YouTube blog tutorial. You can call that whatever you want. I'll click Add, and I'll copy that key. You can then come back to Make, paste in that API key. There it is. And you can give it a name. I'm going to call it the same thing, YouTube blog tutorial. Click Save. And it should now be connected. All right. In order for this to work, you might need to come to your billing dashboard, and you need to add funds and connect a credit card in order to use this API. Claude 3.5 Sonnet, as it stands in January 2025, it is the most expensive language model, but it's also the best language model. So the price is justified. And for something like this, a use case where you're only running a blog maybe once a day or once a week, it's not going to cost you a lot at all. So we have now connected our Anthropic account. This means we don't need to authenticate in the actual headers of the API call. Next, we need to set up the endpoint, the method, the headers, etc. So you want to then go to docs.anthropic.com. This is the documentation, and we are going to be using the messages API. So you can just search for messages. Here it is. I'll click on that. And here is a simple example that we are going to be copying. You can see the messages is a post method. So I'll come here, make sure it's set to post. Yes, it is. Then we want to copy the endpoint, which is this over here. Right? Make sure you don't copy that last part with the backslash. We just want the URL. Copy, Control V to paste that in. Next, we have the headers. So you can see we have three headers. We have the API key, which we don't need to do, and that's because we already authenticated with the Make module. Then we need to add these two headers, the Anthropic version. So I'll copy that. And you can see it's already got the content type one. So I just need to add one more. It added that by default. So I'll add in Anthropic version, and the value is this over here. See, this is that content type application JSON that was added for us. Cool. So we have our Anthropic version, we have our content type. Let's see if we're missing anything else. It looks like then it's just the actual body, which is the parameters of the API call. Copy this, okay, and make sure you exclude those two quotes. You just want the JSON structure, which is the body of the API call. I'll come here, and then in the body, you can paste that in. So let's just test this on its own to see if it's working. I'm just going to click OK to save, then right click, run this module only. And you can see we're getting an error. Okay, so what is it saying? 404 not found. Okay, Anthropic Claude. All right, I figured out what the reason for the error is. We can see here in the URL, you need to enter a relative path, not a full path. So we entered this full path. You can see it even gives us the example of version 1 messages. So we want to remove the root URL and just keep that relative path for the API call. Can click OK, right click, run this module, and now it worked. Fantastic. So we can come here to see the response. I like to do it here, download output bundles, and there it is. Hi, how can I help you today? So that's the response we got from the large language model. Now, what I also wanted to show you is that within here, we can actually add in the transcript into the content of our API call. But you can see currently it's the data is still this long string. And that's because we haven't run it again yet from the beginning, because remember we changed this pass response to yes. So let's rerun this so that we can access the content variable. So I'm going to click run once. It's once again scraping the transcript. It's then going to run that API call from Anthropic. Great. It all ran successfully. And now I just want to show you, if we come here to content and I click within here, you can see that get YouTube transcript module, the data is now split up into the 3 variables from the JSON. And here is the content. So if I click content, it'll literally just include that content right there. So for example, you could write something like transcript colon space, and then it'll pull in the actual transcript over there. So I've actually already set up the entire prompt for this module off camera. This is it over here. So I'll just copy that and paste it in over here. So I'll briefly go over what this prompt is doing, but what I'll do is I'll provide the prompt in the description below for you to download so that you can also use it. It is quite a complex prompt. That's why I didn't want to type it out manually in this video, because it'll just take too long, but I'll just briefly explain what it's doing. Okay, so you can see we have the model, which is Claude 3.5 Sonnet. That's the most recent one. We have set the temperature to 0.4. The closer to 0 you set it, the more precise the response would be, and the closer to 1, the more creative it'll be. So maybe if you want more creative blog post, you can increase this to like 0.8 or 0.9 or something like that. I like keeping it more closer towards 0. I might actually change this towards like 0.3. Then we have max tokens. That's the maximum amount of response tokens that it will return. So I like to keep this as a high number because I want my blog to be quite long. Then here we have the system message, and this is where all the magic happens. All right, so this is where we give it a role. You're a professional blog writer. We tell it its task is to convert a YouTube transcript to a highly helpful, well-structured and detailed blog post, etc. Okay, and then you can see what I do is I include multiple different variables, which is slug, summary, cover image query, HTML, that's the actual body, and some other extra details where I include the link that it must use as a call to action at the end of the blog post, which is to sign up to Futurize, my online learning platform. Then if we scroll down a bit more, I also tell it to respond in a JSON format with those variables. And then what we do is we have the user message, and in the user message, we just contain the transcript. So we say the YouTube video transcript colon, and then there is the data content variable. And then what we do, and this is a little trick I found on a resource online, okay, and this is a way to always return only the JSON structure. And I'll show you where I found that. I got it from the this resource online, okay, the Anthropic cookbook, how to enable JSON mode so that the response will always be JSON. This is because Anthropic don't have function calling, or they do actually have function calling or tool use, but it doesn't allow you to return the output in a JSON structure like OpenAI do. All right, it's not a feature that Anthropic offer. So let me just show you exactly what I did. So let's say, for example, you told the language model to just give you a JSON structure. All right, so in this case, it's famous names of athletes and their sports. You can see this is what the response would look like, right? It would include the preamble text, which is, here is a JSON dictionary, blah, blah, blah. And only then does it give you the JSON, right? We don't want that. We want it to only respond with the JSON without this preamble text. So the way they recommend you do that is you add in a assistant message directly after you ask that question, right? And in the content of that, you say, here is the JSON requested, colon, all right? And then you provide the open brace, all right? And then when the AI will respond, it'll respond with everything that comes after this brace. All right, so you can see it doesn't have the open brace. It has all the JSON structure, and then it has the closing brace over there. So that's just something you need to keep in mind, is we need to later then add in that open brace when we want to pass this response. Okay, so that might have been a little bit too technical. If you are curious about learning prompt engineering, I do have a free course on my Futurize platform, so you can check out the description for that. So there we have it. Now I'm just going to click OK to save that, and let's run this to see what the output looks like. So I'll click run once. All right, it just got the transcript, and now it's busy generating the blog response with all the different variables that are set in the prompt, like the title, the summary, etc. And done. So I'm going to click here to see the response. So to see the response, you can come to body, content, one, text, and there it all is. All right. We can also come here, and there is the long string of the response. So you can see it doesn't have the open brace, but if I scroll all the way to the right, it probably has the closing brace. Yes, it does. There it is. So let me show you how we can pass this response so that we can get each of these as separate variables that we can use in our Webflow module a bit later. Okay, so I'll close this. I'll then click plus. And then what you want to do is you want to use a parse JSON. And a parse JSON module, what this does is it converts a string that is in JSON format into the different variables so that they can be accessed as a key value pair separately. So the JSON string, in our case, it's the response from Anthropic, which is within content, we want to select on this text over here. So that's the JSON string. But remember, we want to then add in the opening brace that I mentioned earlier. So you can just add in that open brace, and then it'll have the rest of the JSON string over there. We can also generate a JSON structure over here. So this is the structure you want to use. All right, you can copy this. I will also provide this link for you to come and just copy paste them so you don't have to write it out manually. You can come back here. We can add a data structure. I'm going to call it Anthropic response. I'll click generate, paste in the sample data. So it's got our title, which will be the title of the blog post, the slug, which is the text that will be in the URL of that blog post, the summary, which is a short description explaining what that blog is about, also used in SEO, the cover image query. That's the search term we're going to be using in Unsplash to get a royalty-free image to use in the blog post. And then the body, this is the actual HTML with the H2 and H3 tags and the paragraphs of the actual blog post. Okay, I'll click generate. There you go. It added all of them in. Okay, and then I'll click save. All right, remember to click OK to save this. Before I run it, I'm also just going to rename these generate blog content. Okay, and then over here, I'm going to rename this parse LLM data. Let's just run this. I'll click save here, save anyway, run this, run anyway. Okay, got the transcript. Now it's generating the blog, right? And it's returning it as a JSON string. And then we are going to pass that JSON string. Looks like there were no errors. That's good. Let's click here and view output bundles. Fantastic. Look at that. It worked exactly how we wanted it to. So it generated the title, Microsoft Breakthrough, blah, 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 the slug. That's the last part of the URL. Okay. We have the summary, the cover image, search query for Unsplash, and then the actual body in HTML form. Fantastic. I'm going to click close. If you made it this far in this video, well done. You're making good progress. In the next step, we are now going to be scraping a royalty-free image from Unsplash. So let's get into that. So if you come to unsplash.com/developers, all right, what you want to do is you want to create an account, all right? So you can just sign up and then you can go to your apps over here. Then what you want to do is you want to create an app. So I'm going to click new application. I think you just need to check these in order to accept the terms and give it an application name. So I'm going to call it YouTube blog tutorial. You can give it a description if you want. I'll leave that empty. I'll click, okay, I have to write something. I'm going to say delete later, create application. All right. Now, if you scroll down, you can see it'll give us our usage for the API, and here it gives us our app ID, our access key, and our secret key. We will be using this in just a moment. Before we get there, let's go to documentation. And what you want to use is the get random photo API. So this is it here, get a random photo. By the way, before ever setting up a API call, it's always good practice to come and actually search make if they actually have that integration already to save you time. So if you search Unsplash, you can see that if you click show more, they don't have a get a random photo. So if I search random, you can see they only have the function which searches for random photos, which is different from getting a random photo. So this actually returns a list of photos, but we just want to return one photo, and that's just a random one. So I haven't tested this out, so maybe it might actually be better. For now, I will show you how to actually set up the API from scratch so that you have more control over the response and the inputs. So I'll click add another module or go to HTTP. Want to make a request again. In the URL, we can come and go to authentication, public authentication, and you want to copy just the root endpoint. All right, api.unsplash.com. Paste that into the URL. Then you want the last part of the endpoints, so we can go to our get a random photo, and it is a get call, and we want to copy those two paths, paste that in over there. All right, so that's what your endpoint should look like. Method is set to get. Next, we want to add in the headers. So we know we need an authorization header. So if we come here, we can use authorization as one of the headers. Right click, copy, add a header, right click, paste. Then the value is this. I'm going to copy this and paste it in there. And then we need to replace the your access key part with the access key that we got when we created the app. So I'll come here to your apps, go to YouTube blog tutorial. There is our access key. All right, so make sure you're not copying your secret. Make sure you just get your access key, copy that, and paste that in over there. Awesome. Next step is you want to add in your search query. Get a random photo. You can see there is a parameter called query. So I'm going to copy that. And then not under the headers, I'm going to come down to add a parameter over here. And the name is the query. And that's going to be the actual search query. And the value of that is going to be our cover image query. All right. So in the previous example, the query was AI neural network. I'll click that. Ooh, I pressed it twice by mistake. I'll just click backspace. And there you go. If you just want to ensure that this isn't going to run into an error, to make sure that this response is URL friendly, you can URL encode the text can go to one of these. Yep. You can come to functions, click on encode URL, and then within these brackets, I'm just going to delete the second bracket and then close the bracket at the end there. So now what it'll do is it'll make sure that this search query is URL friendly. All right. It's not required to do that, but it does make it safer to prevent any errors from happening. So we can either pass response yes or no. I'll click yes for now. Let's see how that works. And I'll click OK. I'm going to rename this to get random blog image, and I'll click OK. Remember, what we need to do is we want to test this to make sure that it's working. So I will run this once again. It passed the data and it got the image without an error. Fantastic. So let's come here to see the response. We can come to data and URLs. There it is. So we have a raw URL. Let's go check out that. Cool. So that is the random image that it generated for us. What was our search query? It was artificial intelligence neural network. I think the URL encoded text might be confusing it with the search query. I don't know if it's actually reformatting this or if it's actually passing it in with that percentage and 20 sign. So what I'll do is I'll just come and just delete this URL encoded text. Click OK. Either way, that worked. I also wanted to mention that if we look at, if we come here, URLs, you can see it gave us a few URLs. The one I recommend that you use is the regular URL, because the raw one, the file size is too large. So for SEO and blog posts, if the file size is too large, it'll take a while for the page to load, which will affect your SEO and your ranking on Google. But the regular one is still good quality. So if you copy this, it's a good trade-off between picture quality and file size. So this is what we'll be using. And this is also the size of my blog images on my blog posts. All right. Great. So now that we have that, I'm going to come here and set multiple variables. I'm going to use the set multiple variables module, and I'm going to click add item, and I'm going to create variables for all the variables that we have used previously in this automation that we're going to be using in our Webflow blog. So we know the one is the title. I'll type in final title, the variable name, and then we can get that from the past LLM data, which is the title over there. Cool. I'll then click add item, final slug, then the summary, final, instead of summary, I'm going to say description, because that's what it's called in Webflow. You'll see that in just a moment. Final summary, cool. Final image URL, and that we would get from get random blog image URLs and regular. Also notice they have the slug for the description, which is the alternative text, which is also important for SEO. Whenever you have an image on a website, you want to give it a description. No one actually reads it. It's just in the background so that search engines can interpret what that image is. So it's good practice to include that. So they have a slug here for us that we can use. I'll actually use this alt description variable. So I'll call it final image alt description, and then we will use that alt description value over there. Click OK. And I'll rename this module and I'll call it assign final variables, and I'll click OK. Let's now run this and see if it works. So I'll click run. I will fast forward this so you don't have to wait for it. Great, and it ran successfully. Let's click on this final speech bubble. And there you go. It looks like we have all our variables assigned. I realized we forgot something important, which was the actual body, the actual blog content. So let's come and add item, final blog body. And the variable name, here it is. Cool. and I'll click OK. All right, we're going to have to run this one more time in order to access the body variable in the next module that we use. All right, if you don't run it, it's not going to be passed and it just won't be there as a variable. So I'm just running it. Let's once again come here. So we can see now we have the final blog body as a long string, and there it is. That is our actual blog. Fantastic. The next step is to set up our Webflow integration. So you can click this add another module and you can search Webflow. Okay, and within Webflow, you want to search for create an item. And this will create a new item in a collection. That's basically like a new blog item in your blog. And you want to then add a connection. My Webflow v2 integration, I'll just keep it like that and I'll click save. All right, now we need to authorize. And you can see I have 3 different websites. Okay, and all called Futurize, but I know I'm only using one of them. I'm not sure which one it is, so I'm just going to select all of them. And then I'm going to authorize all 3. And I'll show you exactly what that actually means in a moment. All right, so you can see now we've added that connection. If I come to Webflow, I'm just going to exit this. So these were the 3 Futurize sites that I was reading in, the 2 with a capital F and the 1 with a lowercase f. So you can see this is my actual website. It's on the CMS plan. So this is an actual paid plan where I use the CMS features for the blogging. So if I click open site, I'll show you how to get to the actual blog once you're in here. You can click on this CMS button at the top. And then this is all your CMS collections. If you want to create a new one, like I have one called blogs, all right, you can click this plus and you can create a new collection. You can give it a name, for example, blog posts. You can give a URL and then the basic field. So these are the fields that will be inside the blog. So you can click add a new field. So for example, rich text would be your actual body of your blog. You can click save field. Then you can add maybe, the blog image. You can say image, save field. And then it'll basically generate the CMS structure that you can use to build the front end. I'm not going to show you how to build the whole front end in this video because it'll take too long, because the purpose of this video is just to show you how to build this automation. But this is my structure. If I come to settings, this is what it currently looks like. So you can just come and copy this. I have a description, a blog text, featured, category, main featured, image. These are all my blog posts that I've set to draft, all right? I haven't published these because what I want to do is I always want to go in manually to review the blog post to make sure that it's not publishing anything that I don't approve of. Okay, so back to make. Now that we have our Webflow integration, we can choose our method. I'm going to choose select from list and I'm going to choose the site over here. So I remember it's one of the 2 with a capital F. I'll try this capital F. Collection, okay, nothing's opening, so it must be the other one. Collection, there they are. So those are all my collections. For me, we are using blogs over here. Right, and here is where you enter all the fields for this blog. So the name would be the title of the blog. So I'm going to use our final variables inside these. So we have our final title. For the description, we have the final description. For the blog text, we have the final blog body. Featured, this is basically where I show the featured blogs on my website. I'm just going to set that to no. The category, I noticed that it doesn't actually allow you to set a variable to set the category. You can only manually select a category, which I don't actually like. So I would have to kind of use a router for different kind of blog posts and maybe like use another language model to determine what category it should be in, and then I hard code this. Right, so I'll leave this blank for now. Main featured, I'll leave that empty. Image URL, we have the final image URL over there. We have the alternative text, which is the final image alt description. And then we have the slug, which is the final slug over here. Great. Then very important, you want to set is draft to yes, okay, because we don't want this to automatically publish, because we want a human to first go in and approve or read through it at least and edit it to make sure that everything is good. And then we can click OK. I'm now going to test this. I'll save this whole thing and I'll click Run once. You can see that ran successfully without an error. So let's go check this out. Output bundles. Looks like everything's there. Good. Let's go to Webflow. You might not see it. You might need to click refresh. This was from the demo we did in the beginning of the video. I'm going to refresh this. Come to blogs. There it is. Let's view this. Microsoft's breakthrough small language models that self-improve to rival GPT-4 in math reasoning. All right, so it's got this one focus a bit more on the math part of it. It's got this blockchain kind of image, which doesn't really make sense. So that might be something that needs to be changed. And then there is our blog post. So that is basically the bare bones of what you need to build out this automation. Next, I'm going to be showing you a few very, very useful tips that if you're planning to take this automation seriously to either publish blog posts on your own website or for clients, then these next tips will be super, super valuable, especially in terms of ranking on Google with search engine optimization. If you really want to take SEO seriously, I'd recommend you use this module here. It's called SEMrush. You can search SEMrush and then you can search for the get organic search keywords. You would need a SEMrush account. It is a few $100s for this, but basically you can provide it a URL and it'll then generate the keywords that will rank on Google. And then what you can do is you can pass the primary keyword into the title of the blog post and the secondary keywords into the H2 and other keywords in like the H3 headers. And when those keywords show up in your headings and subheadings in your HTML, Google will then rank for those keywords. And then that'll result in higher traffic to your website from Google. So that's SEMrush. Another hack I recommend for SEO is after you have published your blog post automatically, it could then go and advertise that there's a new blog post on all your social media. So you can add a router module, and let's say we post to 3 social medias. We can post to, say, LinkedIn. You can use create an organization text post. You could also create an image post and use the image that Unsplash generated. You can also maybe do Twitter if you want to create a post. What else? Maybe Facebook. Create a post on your Facebook page. Then within each of these, it'll then send traffic to your new blog post. This will then save you a lot of time posting your new blog on all these social medias. But what's even more valuable is this creates backlinks to your website from other websites and other social media. And that's a big green flag from Google for SEO to know, okay, a lot of people are navigating to this website from other websites and other backlinks. And then it ranks your website much higher on Google as well. So I'm just going to delete all of these because I'm not going to set it up. So if you want to use this AI automation, but you don't have the time to go and build it all out from scratch, like I showed you in this video, I will give it to you where you can simply import it into your Make account. So if you click these 3 dots, I'm going to click Export Blueprint, but in your case, you'll just click Import Blueprint. And if you click Export, it'll generate this JSON file. And if I open this up, open with text editor, you can see this is just a large JSON structure which contains everything throughout this entire automation. So I will include this blueprint in the description. I have a robot pack, so it includes all the resources from this video and all the other videos on my YouTube channel. So you can basically go to that web page. You'll then be able to download this blueprint. Then you'll be able to come to import blueprint, choose the file, and then you'll be able to import this automation without having to build it all step by step. Also, just remember to come and adjust your system prompt over here and also go and reintegrate all your integrations and API keys. So that's all for building a fully automated system. If you enjoyed this video, please give the video a thumbs up. Did you see how it just highlighted, as I said, like this button? Pretty cool, right? Also, please do subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos on AI and automation, and do turn on the notification bell. I do post videos weekly. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next.